Hey guys, back with some more LeetCoding videos. I'm just going to do a couple easy problems here. So let's get into it. Split a string in balanced strings. So it says balanced strings are those who have equal quantity of L and R characters. Given a balanced string, split it in the maximum amount of balanced strings. Return the maximum amount of splitted balanced strings. RL, 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 RL. Okay, so you're saying they have an equal quantity of L and R characters. So I can split it into this 1, 2, 3, 4. S can be split into RL, RRLL, RL, RL. Each substring contains the same number of L and R. Okay, so right off the bat, the first thing that comes to my head is start at the left and increment a counter for an R or whatever character is first, and then decrement a counter for L, and then when you get to when you get back to 0, increment a counter to say it contains a substring with equal L and R. So it would be like increment the counter, decrement the counter, and then it's 0. So we say there's one pair. Increment the counter, decrement the counter, decrement the counter, and then we'll get back to 0. So then we say increment the total counter of strings, so it's 2, and then increment the counter, decrement the counter, 3, increment the counter, decrement the counter, 4. So I think that will work. So we'll split the string so it's an array of characters. So we'll say ss equals strings dot split s on an empty space, and then we'll say letter counter an int, and we'll go over each character. And then we'll say if char equals R, letter counter plus plus, if char equals L, letter counter minus minus. Okay, and then at each time through the loop, if, except for the first time. If I does not equal 0 and letter counter equals 0, then I want to say letter counter, set it back to 0. Dang. Reset bool equals true. If reset letter counter equals 0, total count plus plus. Okay, so I'm doing this just so I can keep track of if we've reset, if we just found a match, or if we haven't just found a match. So maybe I'll say just found match false. Okay, just found match is a bool, so it's going to default to false. So if it just found match, if it did not just find match, if it just found match, it's going to be true. And letter counter, so we don't want to reset it. So if it did not just find a match and letter counter equals 0, wait, yes. Okay, perfect. And then reset that to true. Okay, so that will say if we just found a match, if just found match is false and letter counter equals 0, then we want to increment the total count and reset and set just found match equal to true. Just found match. Let's throw this in here just so it doesn't use the first case. And I does not equal to 0. Okay, if char letter counter plus plus, letter counter minus minus, found match. So that's going to be true on the second iteration, and letter counter equals 0. That's going to be true, and I does not equal 0. Then we'll increment that. Boom, boom. Okay, cool. And then we'll return total count. So let's walk it through. So I'm reading that cracking the coding interview right now, and one of the methods I'm trying to implement is called DIY. So it's called do it yourself, and I just walk through the problem and how I would do it if I was asked this, and then I try to translate that into machine instructions. So let's try it. So what am I doing here? I'm walking through, I find an R, I kind of keep that in a mental check to say, okay, I found one R. Then I say I found an L. Then I say, okay, so I found 2 pairs. Or I found a pair, so let's say increment a counter to 1. And then I do the same thing, 2, 3, 4. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here with the for loop, is just go through the entire string, counting up and down when I meet letters, and then keeping track of a second counter when I see a pair. So what's going on here? So first time through, let's just make sure I split this correctly. Yeah, okay, so that's split correctly. So then it will go to, it'll start at R and it'll say just found match is false, so that'll be true. Letter count equals 0, that is true. I does not equal 0, that will be false. So the first time through it will not enter in here. If the character is R, it will increment the letter counter. So it'll increment letter counter to 1. It will go in here. If just found match, that's false, so it's true. Letter counter equals 0, that's false. And I does not equal 0, that's true. But this is going to keep us from entering. So then it will come down here. If char, nope. If char, yep. So it'll decrement, so letter counter will be 0. If just found match, that's false, so it'll be true. Letter count equals 0, that's true. I just not equal, that's true. Total count equals plus plus, and then just found match equals true. Okay. So I'm never resetting that just found match. So now I want to say just found match equals false. Just found match equals false. Okay. Okay, so I'm off by 1. Huh. So just found match is false, letter counter equals 0, and I does not equal 0. And I want to increment. If we found a character, we're not on a match. I'll turn that back to false. Oh. Maybe I don't even need that just found match. Okay, so the first character, letter counter will be equal to 0. I will be equal to 0, so it will not go into the total count. Okay, if the character was R, it'll increment it. Okay, so it increments. Next time through, letter counter does not equal to 0, so it will not increment it. Character it'll decrement it, so it'll be 0. Letter counter equals 0, and I does not equal 0, so it will increment the counter to 1. If R, okay, letter counter. Counter to 1, and it will check the next character. R plus minus letter counter equals 0, equals 0, double count plus. Oh, I need one final check. If we end on a 0, letter counter. Okay. If letter counter equals 0 when we end, total count plus plus. I need one last check at the end to get the final case, because the final case will check first before it increments or decrements the counter. Line 19. Oh. Okay, so this should work. It'll get that last case for me. This one's not. This one's without the ER. Sweet. Let's see if it works. It took 0 milliseconds. That's crazy. I know that's not true, but cool. 2.2 megabytes, less than 12% of Go online submissions for split a string. Okay, so I'm happy with that. It took me a little bit of time to work out that edge case of, not the edge case, but to work out that bug where it wasn't checking the last, it wasn't incrementing for the last letter. But once I got that, it worked as expected. I had a little trouble with that flag that I thought I needed to have. I thought I needed to check if I had found a match previously, but turns out I didn't. I could just rely on the letter counter and then ignore the first time through with this I does not equal 0. So that was nice. That let me get rid of quite a bit of complexity. And then this case kind of is weird how I have to stick it outside the for loop, but I think that's the best way to do it. Or I could check the length in here, and if it was the last, then I could increment. But I think this is the best way to do it. Cool. All right, well, I think that's going to be it for me. I'm just going to do one today, even though it was pretty easy. It just took me about 15 minutes. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something about Go. Maybe you're trying to learn Go, you're trying to see how it can be used to solve algorithm problems, but yeah, I think it's a great language. As always, LeetCode is fun. So yeah, subscribe for more.